Cool, cool, cool. We are live. Bhargavi, we're just going to give
Okay.
it like 30 seconds or a minute so
Sure.
people get a chance to be notified that we are live.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm already, it's so funny. So today's topic is executive presence, right? And
Mm-hmm.
technically, I guess I'm an executive. I don't know. Doesn't seem like whatever. But we have a different dynamic at Coacharia. And I'm just looking at what I look like on camera, and I can see the not huge, but some bags under my eyes. And yesterday, I was I did the call, and I didn't have any makeup on, and like it was just a mess. It was a day. And then one of my team members, I got a call with him, and he's like, "You look really tired." And also, you should go put some cream on because your skin looks really dry. And I'm like, okay, thank you. That's the dynamic I have. So it tells you about my executive presence.
Now, I work in solo, right? As a solopreneur, it's like there's really no definition of that. But then I think we're also constantly creating it as we go out in the world and
Okay.
interacting with people. We're creating our own unique presence. If it's not executive, it's something, but we are creating a
Yes, I have
presence.
something. You're right. I have something, just not executive.
So do I. So you're in good company.
Awesome. All right. I see people are here. So let's get started. Exciting. And by the way, to those of you who were here an hour ago, thank you for, coming back because I lost my voice earlier today and I sounded like, gosh, how can I put it nicely? A frog. So my throat needed to wake up because I've been talking all week. But all good. We are here now. Hello, I'm Magda, CEO of Kosharia. Technically, I'm executive. Technically. Um, and I'm here with Bhargavi. Did I say that correctly?
Hi. Yes, you did.
Close enough. Okay, thank you. Sorry. With Bhargavi, who is a coach. And I just learned a whole bunch of really cool things about her. So you're going to see her again because this woman has some fun things to share. But today, the thing that she will be sharing with us is some thoughts on executive presence. Bhargavi, welcome.
Thank you, Magda. Thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm based out of Bangalore, and my clients primarily span coaching clients. I'm a high performance coach, so I work with executives, and I also work with a lot of young adults, mostly elite athletes and some students as well. So that's my client base, and today we're going to be talking about executive presence. So it's more relevant to people working in organizations and even startups, small, big, all kinds of organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's why I said I'm technically an executive because technically Cocharia is not a big corporation. That's what makes us special
Mhm.
and lovely and wonderful. But I'll take
Yeah,
it.
considering I'm a team of one, I think we are in
You're an
great
executive
company
too.
against.
Exactly.
Yes.
Love it. So, Bhargavi, let's start with the basics. What is executive presence?
So, so there's the first time I used to hear all of these leadership presence, executive presence. You just take the colloquial meaning of it. But when I started coaching, right, and this started coming up a lot, and during my reading and study, I realized that there's a body of research which actually puts a structure to how you understand executive presence. So I'll use primarily Sylvia and Hewlett's research, but there's also a lot of other work done by other people as well. So, what they have found is they surveyed a lot of CXOs, top leaders in organizations, and they've tried to understand what is this presence all about. It's such a mystical thing. So, can we demystify it? And what they found is an overwhelming 67%, and there is not much bias amongst men and women on how this is found. So, an overwhelming 67% actually see it as gravitas. You know, we will come to explore that word. I realize that that's another word that that has a lot of heft and depth to it. And then there is about 28% who see prize it as communication skill that comes across, and a very small percent actually put it down to appearance. And the minute you say the word presence, what actually comes to you is appearance, right? Most likely there it's the appearance is already a given. When at that point the bare minimum of what is expected in appearance is already there, and that very small percent actually possibly goes into gravitas is my hunch.
Interesting. I was not expecting appearance. Um, Do you want to unpack these things a little bit more? So yeah, what does
Yeah,
appearance mean, and communication? What does it mean? And the big one you said, gravitas.
the
Because
gravitas. Yeah.
do we have two
So
hours, not 20 minutes?
so I'll actually unpack gravitas first, because that's like the biggest one. And the more I read about it, and the more in my coaching experience, what I realize is that is really what leadership presence is. When I look at how we see others as leaders, myself included, and a lot of other people, I think that's really the core of it. So the very first thing that gravitas has six components, of which the very first thing that they look at is grace under pressure, under fire. Everything is like, for example, recently, right? Not recently, we're still going through COVID, right? So it's not like it's not over. That's what the news is telling us. So how do you handle when something like that goes wrong? Let's say the company had a bad PR show, so there needs to be some redressing exercise that needs to be done. Or you had a bad quarter, and you're going in front of so many people to actually take care. So how are you actually dealing with grace under pressure? Or you did something wrong terribly, and you as a CEO or CXO of the big executive of the organization need to go and defend that, right? So how are you actually reacting grace under pressure? At a different level, if you're working in an organization, project deadlines go amiss, or something happens, and you cut short by half the time that you have, and you still need to deliver. There's all kinds of pressures, everything can go wrong. So what do you do then? How do you behave as a leader, right? There are two aspects to it. How do you respond to the situation, and what kind of confidence, what kind of message signaling that you're doing, so that's a big part of gravitas. So grace under pressure, courage under fire, the confidence with which you deal, that's pretty much the top thing that comes up. The second one that's very important, and again very relevant, is decisiveness. How well all of us make decisions, right? And some of us are very decisive, some of us take it like wishy-washy, and different levels of it. So how good are you at taking those tough decisions? Are you the person who can actually take those calls which nobody can? Because you're never going to be this popular person, right, when you're making the hard decisions. So how is it that you're able to walk the talk? Once you've taken the decision, how can you live through that, abide by it, and get everybody to follow through on that with you? So that's a big part of and then there is also your communication, how well you're, though that there is a separate part, it also comes into this, because you're trying to inspire, influence people to go with you. So while it is there, I feel this word actually pulls that along, right? And when we're talking about tough decision making, you can take some of the toughest calls, but there is also you're working with people all the time, right? Whether we're talking about internally or externally. So emotional quotient again ranks very high on gravitas. How empathetic are you? How much are you able to create trust? How much are you able to create people to identify with you? So that becomes a big part of it. And then there is your vision, how well you're able to visualize the future. And it's not about like uh, a vision that nobody really thinks is going to even happen, but a realistic thing that I really believe that you believe in it, and it's possible. You're able to show it back with some evidence, and therefore I also identify with it. So how you're able to carry people along. So that is this whole thing about gravitas. And I've said a lot here, so I'm going to take a pause and have you reflect something back to me.
It's your session. I'm glad you're the one talking. It's up to us to learn. No, it's nice to hear this, because I'm like, okay, cool. So I have some of these, if maybe all of them. I need to ask my team afterwards. Maybe I can improve my presence with my team. So thank you already.
No,
I've already learned something.
that's a great start, Magda. In fact, they say where you can start is actually collecting that feedback, because gravitas, it's not just gravitas. The whole of executive presence is about what you're signaling about yourself to people around you.
Yeah.
It's not really about your merit, your qualifications, and your credentials that you bring to the table, but how are others perceiving you? So the most important thing is to actually understand what that perception is all about.
Hmm.
And therefore, you just you hit the nail on the head when you said, I'm going to ask my team, because that's really how we see ourselves, and how others might see us could be very different, could be
Yeah.
the same. Then you're doing a great job of managing your presence. So that's where there
Johari's
is.
window. Johari window keeps coming up in everything
Yes,
lately.
absolutely.
My gosh. Was it Joe and Hari, or was it Johari?
Johari.
It's one person? I never remember. All I know is that it's everywhere right now. Anyway,
Yes.
for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, yeah, Google it. But also in coach training, it's a big thing. And honestly, anything to do with working with people, it's a big thing. Because about
Yeah.
how you see yourself versus how others see you, etc., etc.
Mhm.
It's maybe we should do a session on that too. I'm taking
It's
notes.
a beautiful tool, actually. Yes.
Yeah, it's really great. I love it.
Yeah. Yep.
Another session. Okay, so we kind of know what executive presence is,
Yeah.
but it also sounds like it is a bit subjective. So
Yes.
if you're if you're a leader, let's say, watching this,
Mm.
why should you care whether you have executive presence or not?
Okay. So quite often what happens is it is not really what you are intrinsically, but what you are perceived by the world, which decides, whether whether when people have to promote you to the next level, or your appraisals, your feedback from people around you, how well your team actually identifies with you, everything is driven by this perception, right? So, and whether you are deliberately doing it or not, you are creating a presence for yourself. You're creating a perception of people around you. So what this does is, because this research has been done so comprehensively to pick up what is it that's successful, that is perceived as successful. Like you said, there's a lot of inherent bias in this. This is about how people are viewing this whole thing. So it need not necessarily be how it should be. Or there is nothing called should be, right? So it mean how it is, but this is what a certain segment of people who have been successful, who have led this, are seeing that this is what I would look for. This is the kind of person I want next to me in a crisis. This is the kind of person I want to lead my organization. This is what I would look for if I'm putting this kind of a team together. So that's what they are saying, they are talking about. So therefore, it's important for us to pay attention to it. And also, it gives you a structure to organize your thoughts. Okay, because in my coaching with people, one of the things that comes up is there's a lot of conflict, inherent conflict in this, right? Me wanting to be me authentically, and then you're telling me to deliberately focus on these and create a presence for myself. So there is a conflict between not wanting to do it and wanting to be authentic. So this conflict is absolutely. I mean, I empathize with it, and I've seen a lot of my clients actually wanting to. Explore that first before they are even on board to actually wanting to do work. So one of the ways that I guess I'm already moving to the next part where I'm segueing into this how do you actually do it, but it is about trying to be authentic, but able to deliberately portray who you are, rather than a random perception of you being formed, and therefore you're missing out on some opportunities for yourself.
Mm. So it's like brand management a little bit, isn't it?
It is, but a personal brand is possibly a very small part of it, because we're talking about very strong skills here. When you're talking about empathy, when you're talking about
Mm.
communication, when you're talking about the ability to influence, when you're talking about decisiveness, you are also talking about proper skills as well. And it's not just about your brand, who you are, and what you stand for, but that is just one part of it. Yes,
Yeah.
you're also talking
Okay.
about that. It's, I would say, perception, or what you're signaling your perception that you're sending out.
So you mentioned a little bit about some of your clients, and I do want to make a connection of how does coaching fit into this? Because
Hmm.
this, like you said, this is a lot of skill and a lot of
Hmm.
managing perceptions. That's why I brought up brand, right?
Hmm.
Because brand is something that we all have one, whether we like it or not. And it's
Yes.
just,
Hmm.
how do you want to show up in the world versus how you actually show up in the world and how you can influence it. And it's just, there's a lot to that alone, but executive presence is so much more than that. So
Hmm.
it's not something that you either have or you don't, and overnight you can fix it. So how does
Yeah.
a coach play into this? Like, what are the kinds of things that a client will come to you with, and how do
Hmm.
you work with them? What do you do to help them move forward?
Sure. So I see coaching very integral to this whole process, because the very first part actually goes back to what we discussed. That authenticity conflict between being wanting to be authentic and having to conform, or put up a perception which you believe will help you, towards what is required for you to grow. So there, I think a lot of deep dive into who you are as a person, understanding yourself, because what you want to portray, the most powerful presence will be if you can actually portray what are your strengths, your values, and align it with the context. How is it that you will be able to make a difference in your role? How would you be able to make an impact in your role? Impact is a very strong word for this. So how would you be able to influence and impact, right, in your role? So using who you are, your core. So for you to do that, there's a lot of self exploration, understanding yourself better, having a language. That is where I believe coaching has a great relevance. Okay, because you start, first of all, you need to first. I have spent quite a bit of time with a few of my clients just on the conflict about, do I even want to do it? Because this is not authentic. This doesn't sound authentic to me. So for us to arrive at a point where it feels authentic, there's a lot of you need to really and I don't believe that there is a set structure that you need to follow. So it is going to be your idea of who you are, who you want to be, and that will align with your goals, and therefore the whole journey is very authentic to you. And coaching actually helps open up those open those bulbs for you, in terms of shedding insight on those areas, who you are, and how do you want to express yourself to the world outside. And I think the more authentic it is, the more powerful your presence is. The more there is an element of trying to fake it or trying to be too deliberate, but it's not you, it is going to come out. It will show up. So the more authentic you are, your presence is a lot more stronger. So, and sometimes we are unaware, right, of what are our strengths or how are we expressing ourselves. And maybe if you were to see yourself through this whole coaching lens, and you're able to understand and appreciate, you might figure out a better way to express yourself. So that's the whole that's where I see the huge value.
It's so crazy how everything comes back to self-awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, especially in the world of coaching, because it's all, that's the starting point, right, for any kind of reflection, change, any work on yourself. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. So, Bhargavi, it wouldn't be a
Mhm.
conversation with me if gender didn't come up. Um, you know what? Sorry, but not sorry. I have some horror stories from work to share,
Mhm.
and I tend to like to share them because you know what? We all have them, and we I think need to share them because the
Mhm.
reality is that the women just we have a whole other layer of stuff to deal with in every
Yes.
aspect of life, and I would say
Mhm.
work is probably like the biggest one, and yeah, being a woman who is in a leadership position probably, gosh, I'm trying to be diplomatic here. uh, this is the good stuff, right? Like even the fact that I'm trying to be diplomatic, like we can laugh about it because we're both women and we understand where we're coming from.
Mhm.
But you know,
Absolutely.
it's the reality is that work life sucks for us sometimes, especially as leaders.
Yes.
I can,
Mhm.
just with still not being fully awake today, I can think of dozens of examples when I've gotten feedback from male colleagues about my responses to things where I'm like, oh my god,
Mhm.
like I'm so much more cool headed than you are, and you're telling me that I'm emotional.
Yes.
Hold my
Mhm.
beer. So yeah, let's talk about the role of gender with executive presence, and maybe I'll
Yes.
share a story or two.
Yes, definitely. So, like you said, right, I've also been there and gotten feedback about this was too aggressive, and it wouldn't have been aggressive had it been, done by somebody else. So that was a very popular feedback to deal with, or where you have to juggle a lot of priorities, and therefore your time is so much more precious. But then it's not the same, right? But then you're still seen as not being able to show up for something because your priorities were already discussed before, but it's not. So there are different kind of challenges, and these are something that women clients actually come up with. Even when we're doing this, some of the most common feedback that they come back to is, it could be in terms of appearance, or it could be in terms of, I'm very comfortable in, this kind of, but I'm not going to, let's say dress up like this because that is what is going to signal saying that I'm like a hotshot executive. So that has been a very popular one with a few of my clients. And then the other one has been that you're not showing up at parties, and you're leaving too early. That has been another feedback that one of my clients had, and she was like, I'm a mom of three. Where do I have the time? I have so much of other priorities, but I'm doing a lot more, a lot more. I'm going back and putting in all of those extra hours. So how do I signal to people that, I am, but all that they are seeing is those other signals where I'm missing in the team events, in those bonding events that's happening outside hours, and those moments where they feel that I'm leaving early, but I'm logging in for the other 4 or 5 hours in the night and finishing up, a lot of other stuff, but that's not being considered. Right. So there's a lot of signaling that happens, which is not really fair, because that's, if you're talking about women, it's not really fair in that sense. But a lot of this, if we want to work in a context and grow in a context, we'll have to figure out that balance between who we are and our priorities. So it'll have to fit with, I'm not saying that we want to change, obviously not, but you need to make choices which make you feel good, because I've also seen where these feedback actually hit at the self-esteem and confidence. And over a period of time, they start internalizing and believing that this is who they are. Right. And when they're coming to coaching, there's a lot of angst about, and I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. And they've already believed that that is how you need to be. All the feedback that I've got is how I need to be, and I need to fix myself. That may not be the truth, right? There could be other ways for you to be more authentically you and figure out. So a lot of coaching actually with women happens around that. And women, I believe, especially on the EQ, they score very well. On the empathy, on the trust building, they score very well. And we hold ourselves back because we think that that's, the because of the bias that is there, inherent bias of how workplaces are, that being aggressive, strong, and a lot of male traits actually become the way things are done. But actually, we should own some of these traits, because a lot of research coming up of late is actually saying that, there is best of both that can actually combine to. That's why we're talking the diversity is such a big thing in recent times, because of all this research has opened our eyes that there is a space for, we need all of this to coexist for us. We don't need to hide that, the uh, the the trust, the vulnerability, and the emotional quotient that we could bring to the table, right? That could also open a lot more. You could inspire a whole group of team with your EQ. You don't need to hold it back and portray yourself as somebody who's very cool and uh, business-like and no nonsense type. So there's that as well. So if you see the how it is spread across, um, there are traits which actually favor women, there are traits which favor men. So it's, I think, for each of us to figure out, which is our core strength, and then try and see
Yeah.
how we can express that a lot more,
Hmm.
more easily to the outside world.
Vargavi, I keep like pursing my lips and wanting to jump in, because a lot of what you're saying, it's bringing up examples from for me, because
Hmm.
while I'm very feminine, stereotypically feminine in many ways, I'm also very not in many ways, right? So like I've always
Hmm.
been very decisive. Um, I do get stuff done. I it's I have some of those male traits, so to speak, and
Hmm.
honestly, every time, other than Kotaria, because Kotaria has been, a culture that we're building together, and it's really great. But in every job that I've had, every consulting gig, it's come back to bite me. One some Oh God. In one instance, I had a case where people would call me, behind my back, the dragon lady. And it was a term of endearment, partly not really. Why?
Hmm.
Because I didn't mess around. It's like, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm in a position of leadership. So I'm here to lead and here to, deliver. We're not here to just be friends. Like we can also be friends, but
Yeah.
again, very much not a female trait. Another example, completely on the opposite. You were talking about parties before and talking about appearances. So I spent quite a bit of time in the tech world, and parties and drinking was a big part of that. And honestly, like
Hmm.
I love talking to people, and I love doing that kind of stuff. And gosh, I can tell you the number of times that perfectly okay for the boys to misbehave, but if I'm actually there at the end of the party, not like drunk on the floor or anything, although I know we're live, but I'm gonna own who I am. It's happened too. Maybe you know what? I embrace my past. But like, appropriate behavior that would be like, if a guy did this, it's perfectly fine. I would be like, oh Magda, maybe next time you should not do A, B, and C. I'm like, what?
Hmm.
I was with these three other dudes. And that was okay. And you know that I know I'm going off now, but like an example I maybe have mentioned before, but one that always will stick with me is I went to this conference, for lack of a better word, but it was more like a invite
Mhm,
only thing for a bunch of leaders from these Silicon Valley type companies. And
mhm,
I happened to be the representative for my company that I was working at. And guess what?
mhm.
I was the only woman. And this was I mean, whatever. Like, I know you look youngish sometimes, but it's no excuse. I tell you, like I was dressed appropriately to the dress code. I was behaving like I
Mhm.
wasn't even drinking. Like I was being on my best freaking behavior in my executive presence all night. Every person I tried to talk to and network with, the first thing they would say is, "Oh, I will take a martini," or "I will take a whatever." Literally every single dude who was there assumed that I was the waitress, because why would a woman be here representing a company?
Yeah.
And I know they didn't, of course, say that, but they said that for 2 hours, having the first
It's
not to be, "Hello, where are you from?" or "Who are you?" It was, "No,
mm.
I'll take this drink, waitress, thanks."
That that actually is the bias, the unconscious bias, that we have of we jump to conclusions even before we can think through, right? That's a great topic for another time.
Yeah. And no, just like, look, reason I bring it up is because
Mhm.
executive presence, like it's like we said, there's a lot of components to it, right? And
Yes.
there's a lot of things that can influence it. And
Mhm.
it's harder for some people to get to being perceived by the world how they want to be perceived, and then for others, and like for me personally, it makes me freaking angry. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I try to be authentic. I think I'm pretty authentic, and
Mhm.
the thing that happens is that maybe my authentic self isn't what the business world wants a person to be. And what I don't struggle this anymore, because I'm happy who I am. Like, if you don't like me, that's
Mhm.
fine. Like, you don't have
Mhm.
to. But I used to struggle with this a lot, and it showed up, I think, in my leadership and in the results
Mhm.
in the company, because I it made me think that maybe I don't have what it takes, and I would think about myself as being less than, and
Mhm.
I would completely ignore those great traits I know I had. Like, I know I'm decisive. I know that I can make
Yeah.
those hard decisions. I always could. But when I'm
Mhm.
constantly being doubted and seeing these signals of the way that you look doesn't align with how we perceived
Yes.
a leader to look, all of a sudden nothing else matters. And it's freaking frustrating.
Yep. That is something that I've heard over and over again, and it's not just women, it's men too.
Mm.
It's men too. Especially if you're talking about technical people trying to move into leadership kind of roles, and not the most uh, very prolific communicator, or somebody who has the gift of the gap, whatever that means, and all of that, and then they're slotted into something, and their work will not speak for itself, right? They
Mhm.
need to create that perception, and this is where I find that we are unconsciously creating it. So what if we could consciously create? And when I say create, I'm not talking about doing something that is not authentic. Just understanding who you want the world to see you as, and how is it that you can show up in those ways more frequently, and manage that your perception about you on the outside. That's where I think coaching has a great role to play. It's a lot of intricate thing there, but the more authentic you can be, the more believable and good it is for you. There's so less conflict. So
Thank you so much, Bhargavi. We went a little bit over
thank you.
time, but I
Yes.
enjoyed it. I think it was really
Yes.
valuable. And I look forward to seeing you on here again, because I think we have a couple, we have lots of topics where we can have a good chat, I
Sure.
think.
I love that, Manda. Love that. Thank you so much. And I think I enjoyed listening to your experiences, and I think they're so relevant to what we were discussing. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing them. Yeah, thank
And
you.
thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you are an executive who wants to learn, or sorry, who needs a bit of assistance, a helping hand with presence, or any other issues, Bhargavi's available. I know that she's linked in all of the places where you are watching and or listening to this session. So please feel free to get in touch with her. And, if your organization needs a bit of support, contact us, Coacharia. We have many lovely people like Bhargavi who are ready and willing to work with organizations. And my last little pitch, we actually have a website where you can hire coaches. It's called coachintro.com. And it's the new update launched yesterday. There's still a work in progress, so grain of salt, you guys. We're a small company, but we have a lot. I think about 500 coaches who are globally listed right now on the website. So if you're looking to hire a coach, or if you're a coach who wants to list your services, please head over to coachintro.com and register with a profile. And we will be, investing time and energy into that initiative to help all of you grow your coaching businesses and to help all of you clients, lovely clients, to find coaches that can help you achieve your goals and overcome your challenges. So head over there, coachintro.com. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see all of you at our webinar on Wednesday and LinkedIn Live on Thursday. And for those of you who are listening to our podcasts on a regular basis, this month, December, we are doing a podcast a day to celebrate not Coacharia's 10-year anniversary, but Ram, Coacharia's founder, his 10-year anniversary of training people. So before Coacharia got incorporated, Ram started his first cohort, and that's kind of how we started. So maybe it's the 10-year anniversary of Coacharia's origin story, but we're celebrating with a podcast a day. And yeah, take a listen. Look for us for Coach to Lead or Coacharia on wherever you listen to podcasts. Cool. Thank you, Bhargavi. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.